There's this chamber of possibility. Picture like a castle with a treasure room full of all the stuff that you value. It's in that room. But to access that room, the key that opens that door is the hard choice, whatever that choice is. Freedom from means you're leaving somewhere and going somewhere new. Like, just have that clear in your mind. So part of what we're describing, it's not just cognitively knowing that's bad and that's good, because we already know that. It's not a cognitive exercise. It's an action-oriented exercise. You need to leave somewhere and go somewhere new if you want freedom from whatever you're in the middle of. So here's how it works. As humans, we prefer the path of least resistance. We crave convenience, the payoff without the price. But when our lives revolve around comfort, it doesn't deliver. Living in perpetual comfort leaves us weak and asleep. This podcast is an invitation to flip that script, to choose the unlikely path, to get the life you really want through voluntary discomfort. This is Strong and Awake. I'm Dane Sanders. Today's episode, Mitch, I'm really excited, but it's going to expose me, it's going to expose you, it's going to expose anybody who's listening. So fair warning, if you consider what we're going to be chatting about today, it's going to feel a little bit like an invitation to make a change from maybe some things that you have decided this is just as good as it gets. There's not really any hope. That old line I talk about all the time, Soren Kierkegaard, man finds a level of despair he can tolerate and calls it happiness. Today's episode is specifically for people who are despairing in that way, but we're not going to stop there. We're actually going to get into a conversation of what does it look like, practically speaking, to get freedom from fill in the blank. Freedom from a bad habit with smoking. Freedom from a bad toxic relationship. Freedom from having no control when the tray of donuts and desserts come out. Freedom from choosing the easy way, the thing that you're just drawn to, that you feel really like, I got to do it. You got to scratch the itch, when in reality, there are options. But I just want to say it up front. If you're really interested in staying where you're at and staying stuck with the thing, like, this is what I actually want, the thing. I want to smoke. I want to keep those zins going and the vaping going, and like, just shut off the episode right now. This is not your show, because I think by the end of our time together, two things should be happening if we're successful. The first is we're going to indict everybody, because we all have something that we want freedom from. We all do. And second, most of us have given up hope. And I think you'll leave with a sense of hope, like a pathway to possibility that maybe you haven't considered before. So that's what I want to talk about today, Mitch.
I love that you opened with that, because it is so true. It's so easy to be like, well, I don't do drugs. I'm not addicted to that. I mean, yeah, I overeat here and there, and I doom scroll, and I stay up late watching, YouTube videos, but like, hey, at least I'm not doing that. And it's so easy to just kind of like dismiss it and push it away.
At 5 Christmas cocktails. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
I choose to drink. Right. Yeah, says every alcoholic ever. But yeah. In this, we're also recognizing there is a spectrum, right? Like, it's not like they're the same. Scrolling your phone for some people is just kind of like, or like, not being able to not watch the next episode of the thing you're binging, that the impact of that's kind of low, in contrast with the seriousness of like hardcore destructive addiction. My wife's cousin died behind a Burger King on Oxycontin after years of horrific choices. And little choice, a little bigger choice, a bigger choice. And we recognize a couple things here. One, there's some people who've been really devastated because of hardcore addiction, and we don't want to trivialize that. At the same time, we want to expand the conversation to say it's actually the same dynamics going on for people who they just have these nasty little habits that are robbing you of your life. And the common denominator is the existential experience. So again, for those of you who've suffered the way similar to our family or worse, I'm so sorry. It's just brutal. And again, I hope there's hope at the end of this conversation. And also for the rest of us who might say, oh, I'm not one of those. Don't worry, you are. And let me talk about.
We are, yeah.
That's right. I am too. I'm right there with you. And the common human dynamic that's at play in all instances, and it might sound crazy, is comfort. It's short-term pleasure. It's this sense of like it delivers something, or at least it seems to promise like it will. Doesn't always feel like it will. So I want to invite people to a moment. And again, if it's in the category of like hardcore addiction, you know what I'm talking about. But even if it's not, like I want people to imagine that moment when you first got exposed to like the internet. And if you grew up with the internet, it was never not here. I get that too, because I'm an old man. But there actually was a day before it existed. But it's not really about the internet when I say that. What I just mean is access, power, magic, where the thing, the alcohol, the first hit of a cigarette in junior high school, whatever it was, there was probably something kind of incredible about it. Like magical even. The first time I had coffee, I was in high school. And I remember being like, why has no one told me about coffee? Like, this is amazing. I love this dynamic, this thing. and that's fine. But what I want to suggest here is that first experience is often an experience that keeps getting chased for the rest of your life. You're never actually going to quite have that same hit the way you had it in the middle. And that's where it gets a little bit like, why am I doing this crazy thing over and over again? I know I want this short-term benefit. I want the benefit to last. I realize it's not going to pay off later, but at least I'm going to get the front end hit, right? And what we've discovered is it doesn't even deliver. It's unsatisfying.
While it's a spectrum, like you talked about, there's this kind of shared experience. I've often heard the expression, and I've used it in different contexts too, that drinking is like borrowing happiness from tomorrow. And you could swap out drinking for anything there. It's like choosing the short-term comfort,
yes,
and exchanging it for longer-term discomfort. You shared your Soren Kierkegaard quote, so I need to share the Jerzy Kierkegaard quote too. Easy choices, hard life. Hard choices, easy life. And it's that same experience across all of these different crutches, these addictions, these things that we depend on to relieve this discomfort that we're experiencing. But I'd love to talk about just a little bit more. What else are those kind of shared experiences, or what are we feeling when we are dependent on these things? And we're talking about freedom from. So what are these things that we're kind of in bondage to?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Like there's so many cultural ways that we get into this conversation. I think about people who say they want work-life balance, for example. If you survey almost anybody who says they want more work-life balance, what they actually mean when they say that, where their language betrays them, is it actually isn't about balance. What they're saying is they're overwhelmed in some category in their life and they want relief. And the reason we know this is because if you said, oh, you want more balance, let's go jump in a cold ocean in response to whatever you're in the middle of, or let's add some more things to your plate right now. They'll say, no, that's not balance. What I need is, a cocktail or a break, a vacation, some leave. And I just want to acknowledge that desire for relief is it's critical to see it, to know that's what's driving the ship right there. But that's the point, is something that isn't you seemingly is telling you what to go do. And we lose agency in that moment. I have friends, relatives who are in, and this is where like looking at hardcore addiction is really helpful because it's instructive across the spectrum, but it's just so contrasting. Like of course you don't want to be a heroin addict, but when you look at heroin addicts and what's going on, we can apply what we're learning in that stark way in what seems to be more trivial. But it's amazing how you can ruin your life at either end of the spectrum very, very quickly, or at least seriously constrain your life. And I think that's, as people are listening, what should be emerging for you right now is like, oh wait, that is kind of me. There's a sense in which when I intend to do something like watch one 20-minute episode of something, and I find myself 5 hours later having watched 9 episodes and actually feeling like I wasted my day, or I had intention to do this writing or to create this project, and the addiction of getting into an internet fight with somebody about some obscure idea that really has no consequence in your life. And then if you were to look at it, discover you're not even talking with a person, you're arguing with a bot. Like, it's amazing how much we would look back at those things with regret. Like, we don't get that time back ever again. And this is what we want to talk about, is freedom from whatever you want to fill in the blank on, something that you just are sick and tired of having in your life, and you've kind of dimmed hope for getting out of it, this conversation is meant to turn the table and say, well, let's just, in really kind of brass tacks way, why is voluntary discomfort so profoundly impactful in turning the tables on these addictions, whether mild or extreme? And you talk to anybody, we've had several people go through Men and Women of Discomfort who are in active recovery from, say, alcohol or drugs or whatever. And they say, oh, this is just like out in the light rehab. This is just, this is just 12 steps without coffee and cigarettes and a weird room in the upper end of the church. We're doing it everywhere in your life. And that's true. We're actually doing the vulnerable, exposed, uncomfortable thing to open up the possibility of that only comes, again, to your quote with Jersey, only comes from when we make the hard choice. Like it's almost like there's this chamber of possibility, this whole like terrain of resources. Picture like a castle with a treasure room full of all the stuff that you value as highly valuable. It's in that room. But to access that room, the key that opens that door is the hard choice, whatever that choice is. Whether it's having that conversation with somebody that you're going to talk about something that's really uncomfortable. And you know that if you don't have that conversation, you're going to be stuck in a kind of relating that will never satisfy. Or it could be you actually clear your house out of the things, could be food, alcohol, soda, poison, like whatever your thing is. And or just like empty carbs, like the stuff that just drag you down, take away from all the hard work that you do in other categories. Things that are out of alignment with your future self. That exercise of getting rid of those things feels Herculean. It feels like, how could I do that? It actually feels a lot like how I felt this morning when I woke up and went, I'm going to get in a cold shower right now. Why would anyone start their day in a cold shower? Well, in my case, I do it because I know that if I can walk under the shower on a cold morning and turn on cold, I'm wearing this puffy for a reason, turn on the cold water, what ends up happening, and I just breathe my way through it, is I wake up. I realize, wow, in about 7 seconds of discomfort, it's the equivalent of like 7 cups of coffee without any of the jitters. And I'm just there. I'm awake. And then I go into other hard things in my life and I go, I was able to do that hard thing. Those hard things are nothing. I have confidence. I find myself walking through my day with agency. From a cold shower, from 7 seconds of discomfort. Yeah. And I have a bunch of those things. In fact, our whole community has a bunch of these little things that keep opening up possibility, that wake us up to what we're walking in and invite us in to something better. But that's how I experience it. How do you experience it, Mitch?
Experience the kind of alternatives.
Yes.
Or experience the lows of being in that kind of bondage.
I'd love to hear a little bit of the contrast of both, because I do think that they're connected, that we're leaving one world and going into another, and the passageway is choosing the hard thing.
Yeah. I think my experience with things that are less resourceful and more kind of life taking and stealing would be like, it's so pervasive, this promise of what it can deliver. And it's so pervasive that, like, even though I know from past experience or from others' experience or whatnot, that this is not going to serve me long term, that draw of comfort, we talk about kind of the drift, whirlwinds, and our response, that draw and our response to those things it feels so compelling in that moment when you're in micro discomforts or really big kind of whirlwinds and discomforts. So what I've noticed is just not necessarily like, oh, it's this one thing that has a grip on me necessarily, but it's like, this is how I'm relating with discomfort as a whole. And this is my general response. And, we talk a lot about, where else does that show up in your life? And this is one of those episodes. This is one of those examples where I see so many things that I'm relating with in this kind of a way, that I'm using as an out. So when I do step into that cold shower, when I do, pass by the donuts in the, metaphorical break room, or do choose to set down my phone when I'm done with work and be fully present with my family and my kids, even though, there might be something interesting waiting for me. It gives me life, but it gives everyone else around me life, as opposed to the kind of metaphorical secondhand smoke otherwise. So yeah, I would say that's my experience. But like, I would love to kind of move into, we've talked a little bit and teased a little bit about kind of like something that's higher order, like what people actually want, versus the kind of current state that they're in. I'd love to spend a little time on that before we move to kind of maybe some specifics or steps, like the habits that we've described.
I'm going to do both in one swoop because we don't need this episode to be long. What we need is this episode to be effective. And as folks are listening, just notice freedom from means you're leaving somewhere and going somewhere new. Like, just have that clear in your mind. So part of what we're describing, it's not just cognitively knowing that's bad and that's good, because we already know that. It's not a cognitive exercise. It's an action-oriented exercise. You need to leave somewhere and go somewhere new if you want freedom from whatever you're in the middle of. So here's how it works. You acknowledge where you're at. You don't want that. Got it. You acknowledge where you want to go. Well, that second step is no small thing. And oftentimes people forget it. They actually just assume it's just like, all I really want is not that. And that's insufficient. You need to get clear of like, not that en route to that. Well, what is that exactly? I just listened to a podcast with Jesse Itzler. I love Jesse. He's so incredible. And he was talking about like, have one Herculean misogi a year that you go after. Every 2 months, take one day and have an adventure. Every 3 months, add some healthy habits to your life. Friends, that is Men and Women of Discomfort. That's what we do. And that exercise of every 3 months pausing, going, what do I want in this season? What do I need in this season? What do I want freedom from? How can I audit my life and assess a new path forward? Great. But whether or not you do MWOD isn't the point. Just listen to Jesse and do what Jesse says. If you do it, that's great. We don't need you to be a part of our community. But if you have looked back and noticed, I've intended to do that, and I consistently haven't done that, it could be that there are things that are getting in your way. You're not quite as clear about where you want to go. Or the cognitive load that it takes to decide where you want to go is just a little overwhelming. It doesn't feel like you can see the options in front of you. And all the while you're kind of sitting in that in-between state, your life is moving. The reel doesn't stop. It keeps going. So, and honestly, if there was one single call to action, I would just say, like, get real about the reel you're on. Two different definitions, REAL, REEL.
I see what you did there.
And thanks. I thought that was clever. But it's going to require some facing the rumbles in the jungle. And when you have that sense of like conviction, conscience is being broken where you're staying right now. Now is the time, like right now. Interrupt it by getting clear on, I know this is not where I'm going to stay. I'm going to go somewhere new. If I don't know where to go, hook your kite to a crew, a community that is going somewhere, and stop trying to do it on your own. And if that's MWOD, great. If it's something else, great. But the stakes couldn't be higher. Now is the time. If you want to do that at MWOD, it's mwod.io/apply. But our mission is way beyond our little organization. What we care about is that people get real about where they're at. And if they need that freedom, friends, this is your life. Get after what you need to get after. Men and Women of Discomfort is our membership community, and we are open to everyone. But keep in mind, our tagline is, it's probably not for you. If we're wrong about that, or if you want to find out for yourself, you can find us at MWOD.io.